Hi everyone, welcome to Spirited Arts Monet au Printemps. This painting is what we're going to be working on today, and I chose this one because all you need is a white canvas, the primary colors, and white. Those are the only paints you need, so red, yellow, blue, and white on your palette. All right. The first thing that we're going to work on is our underpainting, and usually you do that in a very light color because it's going to be covered up. So don't worry if it's not perfect. We're just gonna block things out. All right, so take your big brush, dip it just in straight yellow. Now I have a 16 by 20 canvas. My younger son is working on a 10 by 20, which is about like a little bit half of that. And you could do this on any size canvas that you want. So you may need to change the proportions a little bit since I'm on a 16 by 20. Okay, so you're gonna take your hand from the bottom and you're just gonna draw a straight line across. It doesn't need to be perfect. We're just trying to show ourselves this bottom portion. Okay, this is going to be considered the field. Then one more hand, and you're gonna do a wavy line, okay? Not straight, just wavy. And that's gonna be some trees in the distance. And now we're going to put some trees into our painting. I'm gonna need a little more paint. Instead of flat against the canvas, I'm actually turning it sideways so I can get some thinner lines. And I am just gonna draw Ys. The ones that are closer to me are going to go all the way down pretty much toward the bottom of the canvas. These are going to be larger because they are closer to the viewer. Okay, so I put one large Y on each side. If you wanted to make the Y a little bit bigger, you probably could do that. Okay, and then I'm gonna put 3 smaller trees in the center. Again, if you're using a smaller canvas, you may want to maybe only use 2 Ys. Okay, so these are a little bit smaller and they don't go all the way down to the bottom of the canvas. And again, they're just to sort of block in where the trees are. If you want to put the trees somewhere else when we get into this, that's totally fine. Okay, rinse your brush. We're gonna mix our first color. After you rinse, you're going to want to make sure that you get most of the water out of your brush. So tap it on your napkin gently. And we are gonna take a scoop of white. I'm gonna show you. Big scoop, use your brush like a spoon, and then when you get to your mixing plate, you're actually gonna twist it off so that you get a nice blob. And then I'm gonna put a scoop of blue right on top of that. Maybe a little less than a scoop. This is gonna be a light blue color, and this is gonna be our first sky color. Notice that I'm mixing it in a small circle, not very large, and I'm pushing the paint to the center. Okay. And with this color, I'm going to come into the sky, which is this top part. So leave these 2 bottom sections alone, okay? I'm gonna fill in just a little bit of the bottom part of the sky section, okay? You're gonna come up to the yellow trees, but try not to paint over them, mostly at this point because they're wet and then your sky will turn a little green. And you just want to do maybe 1/3 of the space in your sky. See, we're doing arithmetic too. So this is math plus art. Come as close to those trees as you can at this point. Also, this sky is very brushy. We're going to be putting a lot of colors on top of this blue sky color. You probably aren't going to even see very much of it, but that being said, it is a brushy sky, so your brush strokes should show. That means we're using a lot of small little brush strokes to fill in our area. Bless you. Okay, you can also take this around the edge if you have a wrapped canvas. Wherever you put that color, you can just wrap it around the edge. Okay, now I want you to add to what you have here. If you have a huge amount of paint, you may want to take a little off to the side, but you're going to take another scoop of white. And you're gonna add that in. This is going to be a lighter blue. You can see the difference. And I'm gonna add this above the blue that I just put on. And you can cross over a little bit into that blue too, if you want to. But you're gonna use this color to move up the canvas towards the top in your sky area. And again, you can use the brush in different directions, just short little strokes. Come as close to the Ys, those trees, as you can get. And take it around the side if you are painting your edges. Also, if you are painting a little bit slower than I am, just stop, and when you're finished this color, then you can resume the video. I'm getting a little bit of green towards my trees, but I'm not really gonna worry about it because it's gonna be covered up with a lot of different colors. All right, and the last color for the sky is actually a darker blue. So you're gonna add a scoop of blue to really either one of these. I'm gonna add it to my lighter blue. That's pretty dark. If you want to push in some of that, the first one we made, which was kind of that medium blue, you can do that. All right, and this is going to be at the very top to finish off the sky. If you go over the trees a little bit, that's okay. And if you have some areas that aren't quite mixed, the blue and the white or the blue and the light blue, that's fine too, because it's supposed to look brushy. Okay. My dog is walking by in the background, but I don't think she came into the frame. We are at our in-home studio today. Also known as our dining room. You gotta have a little humor about things. Okay. If you see some white of the canvas, fill in what you can. Don't fret about it too much. We have a lot of different leaves to put on our trees, and so those spaces will be covered up by other colors. Printemps is spring in French, so this is a very springtime. Things are blooming, lots of light colors. Many of them have white in them, so it will go over top of what you have. All right, I have a fair amount of blue. And what I'm gonna do is take a very large scoop of yellow and I'm gonna mix this in and I'm going to get a nice green color. I'm not rinsing my brush. I'm literally just taking what blue I have in my brush. I'm adding a large scoop of yellow and I may even add more. And I am mixing that into my blue. Again, if you have a huge amount of blue, like I did, I had a pretty big puddle, I'm going to take another scoop of yellow. All right, that's a pretty good green for what I want. I don't want it to be very dark, but it's not a light yellow either. So this is a pretty good shade for where I'm starting. And what I'm gonna do is start in this bottom section. Again, I'm gonna leave those trees open so I know where to go. And I'm also using a lot of little strokes, still brushy. Your brush strokes may not show as much because we do have a fair amount of white, and white usually makes brush strokes kind of smooth out. But you still should be able to get some texture in there, and like I said, we're gonna add some other colors, so we'll be able to add some texture. Notice how I'm going around my trees. Okay. Now, I'm also gonna come up over that yellow line that was my guideline. I don't want there to be a hard stop with this green, so I'm just making some strokes at the top, and the next color is gonna be a lighter green for this middle section. When I do that, I'm also gonna put some of that lighter green at the edges right here so that it's not just dark green, light green, it's sort of overlapping, okay? All right, I do have a lot of this green, so I'm gonna take just a scoop of that off to the side, and I'm gonna add a full scoop of yellow and maybe just a half to a quarter scoop of white. This is going to make a much, much paler green color. And also it's gonna be a little more limey too. So I'm adding yellow and just like a half scoop of white. I may add just a tiny bit more white to it. This should be a very pale green. That's better. Okay, and with this color green, I am going to add into this middle section. Again, I'm overlapping where the two greens meet and also where this green meets the sky. This is kind of trees in the background. That's what this area is representing with this green. I can still see where my trees are, but I'm coming very close to the yellow lines. Where they meet the sky, I am actually overlapping. Remember to turn your brush in different directions. Okay, and then the last thing with this green is that I'm going to put just some real light horizontal lines in this foreground. This is known as the field area. You don't have to do too many, and I'm barely touching my canvas. It's not very noticeable, but there are some light green horizontal lines, okay? And if you want to put just a few leaves up in your sky, you can just do some little dabs, again turning your brush different directions. Not a lot, there's just a little bit of green up there. Okay. All right. Okay. Next, we are going to make brown. And then once we get the trees in, I'm going to stop and let this dry a little bit, and then we'll come back for part 2, which will be putting in the leaves, which are really the light pinks and the coral and red colors. Speaking of red, when you have green, which is yellow and blue, to get to brown, you just need to add some red. So I'm gonna go with that darker green that I still have, and I'm gonna add about a half a scoop of red to that. If you don't have any of that green left, just mix some yellow, blue, and red together, and you're gonna get a brown. Now we did have white in this color, so if it's too light of a brown for you, just add a little bit more yellow, that'll brighten it up. And if it's not dark enough, you can add a little more blue. Just add a little bit more of the primary colors. And I'm just gonna make it a little bit darker. It's tending towards green now, so that means I need a little more red. All right, and still with our big brush, we're gonna fill in those trees now. We're basically gonna trace over what we have, those Y shapes. It's a very, very simple tree shape, okay? You do wanna make sure in this case that your brown is mixed well. Okay, so that took me a little while. Make sure you get a nice brown that you like. And I am gonna just pull some of that paint off so I don't have a huge amount of paint in my brush. And I am just gonna trace over now those Ys. Light pressure, they shouldn't be huge lines. Also, they don't need to be perfect. This is actually almost too perfect, so I'm actually gonna go over it a little bit. It can have kind of a waviness to it. It doesn't have to be exactly straight. That's why I'm using my big brush too. I don't need the precision of a little brush. I just need to give these trees, I need a space to put all of those other leaves. Okay, so they don't have to be super thin. But you are turning your brush so that that metal part, assuming you have a flat brush, that metal part is perpendicular to your canvas instead of parallel with it. Okay, this is where we're gonna stop for right now. I'm gonna rinse my brush and I'm just gonna let this dry for maybe 10 minutes and then we'll do part 2.